I'm Miranda.
And I'm Seth.
And we're at Vacationland Records. Today we are doing Noble Records Vinyl Tag Quarantine Edition.
So we've been watching Dylan and the Noble Records videos for quite a while now, and really been enjoying the videos.
Yeah.
And learning about his record store, and we also follow him on Instagram. So when we saw he was doing this and we watched his video and a couple of the other videos, we thought it would be really cool to do one of these and kind of showcase some of our collection through these questions. And there's 20 questions.
Yep, there's 20 questions, and we'll just read the question and then showcase the answer. Just kind of like, that way you know how it goes if you haven't watched any of the others.
Yeah. So to get into the first one, the first question is, favorite record from your home state or city?
And for us, we picked the Rustic Overtones, Room by the Hours.
Really cool record. These guys have been playing locally for over 20 years in the state of Maine. And they've toured many times. At one point, they were signed to a label. They got to do some really cool things. Now they're back local, but this is one of those local legend bands from Maine that if you've never heard, super cool band. They have the horn section. It's hard to describe their music. It's definitely rock, but it's a really cool style.
Yeah, it's like, I guess the closest thing you could equate it to is Dave Matthews Band, in the sense that, they have a full horn section.
Yeah. It's definitely something that's cut from the 90s cloth. It sounds a lot like, Dave Matthews and that sort of thing. Maybe even a little bit like Blues Traveler.
Yeah.
In a different sense, but it's definitely, 90s inspired stuff. But they've done stuff that's kind of all over the spectrum. But this record, Rooms by the Hour, you can hear it on Spotify and, wherever you can find music, as well as they just released this record for a local record store just released this
as a store exclusive.
So check out this record. It's really good.
Question number 2 is an album you highly recommend.
So an album both of us would highly recommend is Morphine's Cure for Pain. This is a really neat record. These guys are from Boston from the 90s, and they're what's called low rock. So they had a singer who also played bass, but he played a 2-string slide bass, which is really neat. And they had a saxophone player and a drummer. So what's really cool is there's no guitar in this band.
It's cool because kind of in the place of where you would hear a guitar solo with a more traditional band, you get a lot of saxophone and tenor saxophone?
Baritone.
Baritone saxophone.
Yeah, really cool sound. It's like nothing else you've ever heard, really. Awesome record. Highly recommended. Go get Morphine's Cure for Pain. They have many other albums, but this is the perfect gateway to the rest of their material, I think. So question number 3 is a tip for a beginner.
So I think one of the biggest tips is, quality over quantity. It can be tempting, when you first start, to get out there and buy everything.
Yeah.
But I think definitely a rule of thumb we've followed is more quality over quantity.
I agree. It is tempting to just go and buy, but vinyl is an added expense for a music collector. So we try to buy things that are really important to us, like an album that we've had for a long time. Certainly we'll buy stuff to check it out and to see if we like it, but we probably do that a little less often than buying stuff that we've already listened to or that's kind of tried and true, because we want to kind of have it on the vinyl format, kind of archived. So
right. And kind of another thing that kind of piggybacks on that is, when you're starting out, if you're not completely sure the type of music that you like, it's okay once you get down the road in your collection and you decide that, you want to pare down and you want to focus more on either certain bands or certain genres, don't ever let someone make you feel bad because you've decided to sell some of your collection. That way it can be fully focused on stuff that you like. You know, some people will try to tell you that it's, you know, you're not a real fan if you sell your music and all this stuff, and, you know, just don't listen to that.
Yeah, I agree.
We have question 4, first record that got you into deeper music.
So we both have one for this. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, so for me, I picked A Day to Remember's For Those Who Have Heart album. These guys are a pop punk / hardcore band. And I remember when I discovered them, it just opened me up to this several new genres, not just pop punk, but, you know, heavier music, more on the hardcore side, more on the punk side.
Yeah.
Because it's not typically music that you really hear on the radio. And actually, I discovered these guys back in the MySpace days. I went on one of my friends' profiles, and, you know, back with those, you used to be able to have like this music player that you could select, you know, a couple of songs. And I remember going on someone's profile, and the first song that played was A Day to Remember, Plot to Bomb the Panhandle, which is on For Those Who Have Heart. And I remember being like, what is this? What is this music?
What is this crazy music?
And it just brought me down this whole rabbit hole of a couple of genres of music that I really love today.
Yeah. And so for mine, I picked Rush Hemispheres. And so this is sort of, I would say, one of the lesser known Rush albums. It was actually the first Rush album I ever owned. Crazy cover on it, but this one kind of got me into progressive rock and sort of these longer songs that are a little bit more deep and not necessarily, you know, commercially successful in that traditional sense. Obviously, Rush has many songs that were on the radio, but this one, you know, other than maybe The Trees, you probably would have never heard anything from this record on the radio. Just one that I love. I had it in high school. I used to listen to it on headphones, and just it kind of got me into thinking about, you know, what else is out there for music besides kind of the stuff that was on the radio.
Question number 5, and that is an obscure record people may not know about.
Okay, so for this one, I actually picked another local record. This is the Venus Transit from the band Five of the Eyes. Really cool progressive rock and metal band from Maine, up here in Maine. It's not so much obscure as it is local, so it's just not, you know, like a national level band. But go check out Five of the Eyes, the Venus Transit, if you like, I would say, the Mars Volta, Rush, Porcupine Tree, stuff like that.
Question number 6 is a group or artist who you tried to collect all of their albums.
Yeah.
And we both actually picked selections for this question.
Absolutely.
For me, I went more leaning towards the artist route, and I picked Jack White. He has several bands. He has his solo project stuff, and then he has the Raconteurs. He has the White Stripes, and then he also has the Dead Weather.
Yep.
I've been a huge Jack White fan ever since the White Stripes first came out, and just as he's done other projects and even just like hit the Third Man label stuff in general.
Yeah. He curates some really cool music. And,
and I try to get it all. That, you know, there are other artists who we, you know, have either their whole catalog and stuff like that, but Jack White is definitely the stuff I have the most of, that I've collected the most of.
Yeah. And so I actually went, I chose the singer, so Maynard James Keenan from He's in the band Tool, so I've got Undertow here as an example. He's also in the band Perfect Circle as a singer. So we've got 13th Step there. And he also has a side project called Pucifer. I say Pucifer. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it.
Some people say Pucifer.
Yeah. Really cool singer. He's so amazing. He has an amazing range, and his lyrics are
thought-provoking.
Very thought-provoking, very cerebral. I've just been a fan of all of Maynard's projects for easily 20 years and seen him many times. So I think as far as a singer or artist that I have pretty much everything that's ever been put out of, it's got to be Maynard. So.
And it's cool because like we both, even before we were together, loved Maynard and all of his projects. And then when we got together, I got Seth into Jack White and all of his projects, and they're both stuff that
we both love.
That we both love.
Yeah. Number 7, a band whose second album is better than their first. So this was an interesting one. We both chose Pearl Jam Versus, and this is the vinyl reissue cover. The lamb or sheep looks a little bit different.
It's an alternate cover.
So, great album. Many of you, I'm sure, have heard Pearl Jam Versus, but a lot of people would say 10 is their best album because it literally is front to back, just amazing songs that you've heard. Most of them have been on the radio. But I actually like Versus a little bit better. I think it's just because when it came out, I had it on cassette and I listened to it a million times in my Walkman, and it just, for whatever reason, for me, it just hit a little harder than 10 did.
And I think for me too, why I also picked this album is some of the stuff isn't as commercially played, so it's not as overplayed as a lot of the singles that are on 10. You don't hear this stuff as much on the radio.
So we are on number 8, which is
8.
Whack-A-Mole.
Whack-A-Mole. So the unfortunate part about our collection is the shelf is low. We have it the long way so that we can have the record player and speakers on top of it. But we will insert a picture here in this segment
so you can see
it. So I've got to kind of reach behind us here. And so Whack-A-Mole, what they described is you just kind of reach behind you, blind pick a record, and then talk about that record.
Yeah.
So I'm going to reach back here. And I pulled out 311, and this is Universal Pulse.
We actually got to see these guys a few years ago on this record.
Yeah, the cool thing about this record is the big single from this album is Sunset in July. And it's kind of cool. A couple of years ago, we got to see them out in July on the ocean, and at sunset, they played Sunset in July. So we're literally watching 311 play as the sunset is setting over the ocean, and it was just
beyond cool.
Just a beyond cool experience.
Yeah. Number 9 is, what album have you listened to the most in your life? This was a hard one to just sort of think about. Like, wow, what album have I actually listened to the most in my entire life?
But we both picked selections for this. So I picked A Day to Remember's Homesick album. This was the follow-up to the record I showed a little while ago, For Those Who Have Heart. This album, just front to back, is a complete banger. Everything is amazing. This album also got me through a lot of things in my life, both good and bad. And the cover art is done by one of my favorite artists, Dan Mumford. So to me, I had to pick this album.
And so I chose as we just talked about Maynard and Tool. This is Tool's Lateralis album. It came out about 20 years ago, so over the past 20 years, it's easily been the album I've listened to the most. I love it's got like this really cool, almost lenticular, holographic gatefold. Love this band, love this album. As you said, it got me through a lot of, good times and bad, and it was one of the first albums I remember, like right as I got my license, I was jamming out to. So it kind of, for me, is tied to the memory of like that first initial freedom you have when you're like, 15, 16 years old, and you're out there just like, jamming your music and, feeling that freedom for the first time. So absolutely love this album. If you've never heard Tool's Lateralis, go check it out.
Do yourself a favor.
Absolutely, yeah.
Number 10 is show an album with a crazy story. Oh, yeah. And so we picked 12 Foot Ninja.
So this is a band from Australia. They're what you would call, I guess, gent metal. Really interesting stuff. They're kind of a genre-defying band. They're definitely metal, but they have, sort of like 70s rock mixed in, funk mixed in.
Some like Latin beat elements.
These guys, go out of their way to basically just introduce all these ideas of different genres into their music. So it's definitely more than just metal.
Yeah.
And the crazy story we have is, so we, about 5 or 6 years ago, we got to see these guys down in Massachusetts, and we had a car full of our crew. We were all driving down. All of us had our tickets except for our one buddy who decided to roll the dice and say, I'm going to get my ticket at the door. So we get all the way down there. We get parked in the city. We're waiting in line, and he's like, I'm gonna go to the ticket booth and get my ticket, and
the show was sold out.
The show is totally sold out, and so he's the one who drove us down, and he was looking at, oh man, like I'm gonna have to, wait in the car while you guys watch the show because I'm just out of luck.
And this also, to note, when we went to the show, it was in like November, so it was cold.
Yeah.
There was snow on the ground.
It would not have been an easy time to kind of wait it out. So we decided, so these guys are from Australia, and they're really, they're pretty responsive on social media, and we just had this idea like, hey, we're friends with these guys on social media. Why don't we try to message them and just see if there's like a way that, a ticket might be available. We're happy to pay for it, but like we just reached out to the band and said, hey, we explained the situation. We got the crew. One of our guys can't come in. And lo and behold, Stivik McKay, the guitar player, comes out of the venue with his VIP pass around his neck, and just like, walks out to the line and says, hey, like who just contacted us on social media? And we're like, hey, how's it going? We're like kind of like shameful, like, yeah, we did. And he literally throws his VIP pass around our buddy's neck, and he's like, just come with me, and sneaks him in early so that he could get in.
Yeah.
So the guy who
just wild. And it was, because at the time, and they are still considered, not in Australia they're a big band, but in the States, they're still considered a smaller band, and it's like that would have never worked in any other situation. Yeah,
seriously. And our buddy that didn't have a ticket, he got in first. He got personally brought in by the guitar player from the band. We're like, come on, so
come on, man.
Come on, man. So like we're all still sitting out in line, and he's in the venue just like, buying drinks, and so that was a really fun show. They absolutely killed it. It was great, but just a crazy story.
Yeah. We are at number 11, and number 11 is your collecting pet peeves.
Oh, yes.
So, for me, one of the biggest pet peeves for me is when, you're in a record store and it's not that busy, and you're looking, and all of a sudden you got someone that's right next to you, and they're looking over your shoulder, looking at what you're looking at, trying to like hurry you along.
Yeah, that's so annoying. I mean, just give everybody a little bit of space. I always say that like if you're looking, so if in the S aisle, you know, don't walk right up and be in T or right next to somebody. Go a couple letters down and give somebody some space on either side. So, you know, it's kind of that like unspoken community rule of like just give each other a little bit of space.
But also to piggyback on that, I guess also another tip is if you're in a record store and you're looking and someone's doing that to you, don't let them rush you. Take all the time that you want. I do that all the time, and eventually they'll get frustrated and they'll move on and they'll look at something else. But, you know, don't let them hurry you along. If you're looking at stuff you really want to look at, go to town. Take all the time you want.
Yeah, stand your ground.
An album or genre that people would be surprised to know that you like.
So we actually didn't take this one out. I'm going to get it real quick.
So we picked Ray LaMontagne, the Pariah Dogs album.
So Ray is also originally from Maine, but he has been out of Maine for a long time.
A lot of you guys who listen to that like acoustic type of music, you know, along the lines of like Jack Johnson and stuff, probably know who he is.
If you've never heard this album, it's just brilliant. You know, we're rock and metal, you know, fans, but we love Ray, and this album is just absolutely fantastic, especially on vinyl. I don't know what it is, but because it's got a lot of space and it's sort of folky.
And it has a good amount of like slide guitar, and there's just something about like his voice too. Like his voice just has this kind of like great raspiness to it that it just sounds so fantastic on vinyl.
Yeah.
And it's not typically, you know, what stuff that we would gravitate to, but it's just fantastic.
Yeah, it's the perfect like Sunday morning album. You get a cup of coffee and just put this album on, and it's like just an amazing morning album, you know.
So number 13. A record from the year that you were born. So we kind of flipped this.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite albums actually came out the year that Seth was born. And one of his favorite albums came out the year that I was born. So we flipped it. So we're going to talk about albums from each other's birth year.
Yeah.
And
so go ahead and talk about it.
So I picked Seth's birth year is 1984. And this incredible album, Prince and the Revolution, the Purple Rain album, came out. This is one of my all-time favorite albums. I absolutely love Prince. I discovered Prince when I was young, and at a time in my life where it just forever kind of taught me that, you know, do your own thing. Be how you want to be. It doesn't matter if you're different or if you're an outcast. This album really taught me, you know, just do what you want, and if people don't like it, they don't have, you know, they don't have to like it, but just be yourself, be true to yourself. And I also absolutely love the Purple Rain movie.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite movies. But yeah, I just had to talk about this album.
And so an album that came out Miranda's birth year, which was 1989, is Faith No More's The Real Thing. I absolutely love Mike Patton and Faith No More. Definitely a band that's just huge on me, that I discovered in high school. These guys are absolutely great. This is the first album that Mike Patton was on, because before this album they had a different singer. Absolutely great. Everyone's heard Epic. You've probably, even if you don't think you've heard it. So Faith No More, look up Epic, you probably have heard it. But so many cool songs. This is sort of a anniversary edition that has a cool gatefold with a story. It's pictures of the band. So that was my choice. Great album from the year that Miranda was born.
Number 14, show attendance record, and if you don't have one, share your opinion on 10 inches.
Okay, so we have a few 10-inch records. This one would be our favorite one, and it's a really interesting one. It's from a band called Them Crooked Vultures, and you can see this cool vulture wearing a suit, smoking a cigarette. He's pretty cool, and it actually has a cool image on the back too. It's got this cool kind of seal that almost looks a little bit like the Ramones seal, I guess. Just a really cool.
And for you guys who don't know, Them Crooked Vultures is a super group. So it is Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age, Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters, and then John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin.
So really cool. This has it has 2 songs on side A, and on side B it actually has an interview, or just more like a talk.
Yeah.
With the 3 of those guys kind of talking about the process of making the album and kind of how they got together. So it's cool because it gives you this whole spoken word, document of kind of like where their heads were at during the making of that album. So I personally don't mind 10-inch records. We don't have a lot of them, but
sorry to cut you off.
Oh, it's okay.
The other 2 that we do have are both Star Wars ones. That have, songs from the Star Wars movies on them.
The John Williams soundtrack songs, yeah.
But I don't personally mind them. I like them. A lot of the artists that we are fans of don't release a ton of them, but if they were to, I would buy them.
Yeah. Any and all formats of music are pretty awesome. I mean, we're not really super critical of...
No, I also love to collect 45, so it would be weird if I was like, 45s, but 10 inches, nah.
Yeah, right, so...
Alright, so we have number 15, and it is share an interesting fact about an album or a song.
Okay, so for this one, I picked this album called Blues Explosion. It came out in 1984, and what's really interesting about this is... at the Montreux Jazz Festival in 1982, Stevie Ray Vaughan went to Europe for the first time ever to play Blues Night at the Montreux Jazz Festival. And there's a really amazing performance of Flood Down in Texas on this album. It's a compilation of a bunch of different blues artists from the Montreux Jazz Festival. But that particular performance was special because David Bowie was sitting in the audience and he heard Stevie Ray Vaughan for the first time. And this was before Stevie Ray Vaughan kind of broke out huge and really got discovered. And he liked Stevie so much that he went up to him after the show and asked him to play on one of his albums. And he actually played on Let's Dance. So that was a real break for Stevie, and really cool. It's probably about a 10-minute long version of Flood Down in Texas. So if you've never heard that, pick it up or check it out. It's really neat. Okay, so number 16 is show an album with an animal on the cover.
And we had to pick this excellent album. This is Clutch's newest album, Book of Bad Decisions.
Really great album. It's about 2 years old at this point, and
it's a really cool gatefold as well.
There were some amazing songs on it. Give Me the Keys being one of them that we spun very extensively. Just a great album front to back. Clutch is one of those bands too that they're just road warriors. They're always touring, always playing, always releasing material that we love.
Yeah.
And we had to show off the eagle because he's just pretty majestic.
Yeah. Number 17, show an album with crazy artwork. And we chose Queens of the Stone Age's newest album, Villains, which features artwork from the artist Boneface.
Really cool artwork.
And then this is the back cover here.
This is actually the deluxe edition that comes with like 10 art prints, I think 9 or 10 art prints from Boneface, one for each song on the album with kind of an interpreted artwork. So it's just absolutely amazing. This was probably one of the first times that out of the gate we bought the deluxe version of an album just because we wanted the expanded artwork, and it's really cool if you've never heard it. We love Queens of the Stone Age.
Yeah, they're one of our favorite bands. We just actually recently now have all of their studio albums on vinyl.
Yep.
Number 18, show a really good album that you can find for cheap.
So you have this one.
I picked In Excess's album Kick. This whole album, just front to back, is so good. It has a lot of their hits on it: New Sensation, Devil Inside, and Need You Tonight.
It's like the perfect kind of dance party album if you're just having a fun night.
It is. And it's, an album that you can always find pretty cheap, anywhere from the like $1 to $5 range.
Yeah.
But it's just such a solid album.
It's a great one. Number 19, show an album with an acquired taste. I picked Primus Aunty Pop. This is one of my favorite Primus albums. I picked it because I think it's probably the best entrance into Primus. They have a lot of earlier material. This is even kind of on the later side of the majority of their back catalog, but it's one that I started with, and it came out in 1999. Really cool eclectic music. If you've never heard Les Claypool, he has an amazing style of bass. And I should also mention that I'm a bass player, so that's one of the reasons why I love the album so much. Because it's just absolutely amazing. They are a trio, so they have guitar and drums, and Les, the bass player, also sings. They're just a wacky style of music. Primus is almost their own genre, so you just have to check it out. But I would recommend almost starting with this album just because it's a good gateway into the rest of the back catalog. But so check out some Primus.
And then the last question 20, is show your most recent finds. And because, the state of everything right now, you can't really go out and go shopping. So we've been ordering quite a bit online.
Yep. We got to, keep supporting our local record stores. And, we figured least we can do is order a few things online to kind of keep them going and also keep ourselves going, because we love to be out there digging through the bins and all that. But just being able to collect vinyl is for us just something that we love. So
so since we've been ordering quite a bit, we both picked our most recent buys, and I picked Billie Eilish's Where Do We Go When We Fall Asleep. This was an album that really surprised me how much I fell in love with it. I don't typically like this kind of music, but there's just something about it. Front to back, the entire album is so good. She is so talented, and it just, I don't know, it just struck a chord with me, and I literally can't stop listening to it.
Yeah, I absolutely love the production on this album. I think, I know her brother Phineas is kind of the producer and engineer behind this stuff, and there's so many cool like textures and choices that I think, as like a modern album, it's kind of, groundbreaking in how it was recorded and how it was done, because there's some really cool sounds and textures on it. So,
there are, and a lot of it, some of it's kind of like very low, and then like very high as far as like some of the, the vocals, like some of it, she's almost like whispering. Yeah.
It's definitely something that probably couldn't have happened, 20 or more years ago with the advancements in recording, that whole low singing thing, or just really quiet singing with like a, being able to make it prominent in the mix is something that is really a product of kind of modern recording. And so I picked an album from the 80s, from Oingo Boingo, Dead Man's Party. This is another party album if you were ever looking to have like a fun dance party. These guys are so wacky. Danny Elfman, who is now more known for his soundtrack scores. If you've ever seen a Tim Burton movie, there's a good chance that the score was done by Danny Elfman. Absolutely amazing musician and just composer and songwriter. But his earlier work with the band Oingo Boingo was just really kind of groundbreaking. I would call it maybe like new wave.
Yeah, it's all just really fun, like 70s and 80s new wave.
Yeah, if you've never heard Dead Man's Party, the title track, just look up Dead Man's Party, and it's like all you need to know about Oingo Boingo is in that song. Like, just an absolutely incredible song.
And there you have it, guys. There is our Vinyl Tag Quarantine Edition. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Definitely, interact with us in the comments if there's, some of that stuff that we picked that you guys like, or if you're wondering about any more of like the local stuff that we shared.
Yeah, and, tell us what you like for these questions too. And feel free to make your own video.
Yeah.
We'd love to see other people, see our video and make their own.
And, big thumbs up on the video. Hit the subscribe button if you guys like us. I know that our channel is new, but we have a lot of plans to put out a lot more videos.
Yeah.
And with that, I hope you guys have a good day.
Thanks, guys.